All right, hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. This is an educational channel where we take a look at great theories of everything, ancient and modern, mostly obscure, and try to kind of walk you through them and encourage you to use them in your own life to help you with your paradigm shifting, your awakening to 5D consciousness, your formation of a holistic worldview, your quest for spiritual, mental, and physical health. And today is our 39th video on Daniel Ingram and his book called Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha. And so this is a book on all things Buddhism. Oh boy. Sorry about that. I'm kind of putting this camera on a pretty unstable, there we go, hopefully that'll stay. And yeah, so this is a book about all things Buddhism, but particularly in terms of insight meditation, giving you all the steps that you need to wake yourself up and to eliminate suffering for yourself through stages of enlightenment done through insight meditation training. And he's talking about that right here, the stages of insight. I think this is chapter 30 in part 4. And we were talking about different phases. He walked us through the 16 stages that you go through if you do proper insight meditation, which is based on investigating the 3 characteristics of all of your 6 sense doors, your 5 senses plus your mind, and investigating all the phenomena and discovering that they are all impermanent, that they are dissatisfactory, and that they are not self. And being relentless in that investigation, so it allows you to break the barriers and move through the different jhanas or insight stages that apparently all humans go through when they go through this process at varying speeds. So we're going to take over right here where we left off yesterday. While many people don't want to know the maps for various reasons, such as their own unexamined insecurities, biases, givens, beliefs, and traditional silos, the experiment has been done, and it has shown clearly that in general, people get further in their practice when they know the maps and have good guidance about how to use them properly and avoid their traps. I don't know why people persist in thinking that ignorance is so much better than a solid grounding in practical theory. When you think about it, many adult meditators have already witnessed thousands of people killed in the media and maybe killed in real life, likely have had sex, may have given birth to children, may have themselves killed people in war, dealt with pain, illness, and modern life, and yet somehow can't handle insight maps? This bizarre view needs serious questioning and exploration. At the very least, the maps clearly demonstrate that there is vastly more to all this than just philosophy or psychology. They also clearly and unambiguously point to how the game is played step by step and stage by stage, what we are looking for, and more importantly, why. And they provide guidelines for how to avoid screwing up along the way. Why people wouldn't want to know all this is completely beyond me. But there are entire meditation traditions dedicated to keeping people in the dark concerning the maps. The maps fill in the juicy details of the seemingly vast gap from doing some seemingly boring and simple practice to getting awakened. Further, providing this extremely precise information on exactly what to do puts the responsibility for progress, or its lack, clearly on you, the meditator, which is exactly where it should be. If after reading this book you don't put this extremely powerful information into practice, the fault is yours alone, and perhaps is the better part of valor if you feel you are currently too unstable to attempt these sorts of practices and strive for the effects they create. There is considerable evidence that the lack of this information in insight traditions that don't consult the maps has been one of the primary obstacles to progress. On the other hand, the maps can sometimes cause furious competition and arrogance in the followers of traditions that do use them, who have not trained sufficiently or adequately in morality, as well as harmful fixation on purely future-oriented goals, both of which are basically spiritual poison. Please do your very best to avoid these sorts of problems by applying the various remedies given here and in other fine works on meditation. But recognize that problems and complexities often go with the territory, sort of like injuries in the world of athletics. Common, unfortunate, but not a reason to ban all sports. The more intense, consistent, and precise the practice, the easier it is to see how the maps apply. The more energy and focus are dedicated to practice, the more dramatic and even outrageous these stages can be. If these stages unfold gently over long periods of time, it can be more difficult to discern the progression through them, though it does happen. Certain emphases in practice, such as Mahasi Sayadaw style noting practice, particularly on intensive retreats, seem to produce a clearer appreciation of the maps, and some individuals will have an easier time than others seeing how these maps apply. Each stage is marked by very specific increases in our perceptual abilities. The basic areas we can improve in are clarity, precision, speed, consistency, inclusiveness, and acceptance. These improvements in our perceptual abilities are the hallmarks of each stage and the gold standard by which they are defined and known. Each stage also tends to bring up mental and physical raptures, unusual manifestations. These are predictable at each stage and sometimes very unique to each stage. They are secondary to the increase in perceptual thresholds by which we may judge whether we are at a specific stage. Each stage also tends to bring up specific aspects of our emotional and psychological makeup. These are also strangely predictable, but not as reliable for determining which stage is occurring. The emotions that might show up are suggestible, scriptable, ordinary, and will show more variation from person to person. However, when used in conjunction with the changes in perceptual threshold and the raptures, they can help us gain a clearer sense of which stage has been attained. Further, these stages occur in a very predictable order, and so looking for a pattern of stages leading us to the next can help us get a sense of what is going on. Thus, when reading my descriptions of these stages, pay attention to these distinct aspects. 1. The shift in perceptual threshold. 2. The physical and mental raptures. 3. The emotional and psychological tendencies. And 4. the overall pattern of how that stage fits with the rest. So, we sit down or lie down, stand, walk, and begin to perceive every sensation clearly as it is. When we gain enough concentration to steady the mind on the object of meditation, something called access concentration, we may enter the first jhana, now called the first vipassana jhana, which is in some ways the same initially for both concentration practice and insight practice. However, as we have been practicing insight meditation, we are not trying to solidify this state, but rather trying to penetrate the three illusions of permanence, satisfactoriness, and self by understanding the three characteristics. So the three illusions are the opposite of the three characteristics. Three illusions of permanence, satisfactoriness, and self. We try to penetrate those three illusions, he says. We try to sort out with mindfulness what are physical sensations and what are mental sensations, and when these are and are not present in our direct experience. We try to be clear about the actual sensations, just as they are, that make up our world. We try to directly understand the three characteristics moment to moment in whatever sensations arise, be it in a restricted area of space, such as the areas in which the sensations of breathing arise, or a moving area, as in the case of body scanning practices, or in the whole of our world, as is done in what are generally called choiceless awareness practices, using some other technique or object such as noting, or just by being alive and paying attention. Thus, this first stage has a different quality to it from that of concentration practice, and we attain direct and clear perception of the first knowledge of mind and body. Okay, so mind and body is the first vipassana stage, and it is within the first jhana, the first vipassana jhana. They're really like 16 stages, and they're divided up in 4 jhanas. But it's not 4 each, but as we go along, we'll see, I identified those yesterday, but as we go along, we'll see again, which of the insight stages belong to which jhana. There is a sudden shift. Mind and body. This section is called Mind and Body, number 1. There is a sudden shift. Many mental phenomena, particularly the main narrative thought stream, shift out away from the illusory sense of the watcher and are just out there along with the sensations of the other 5 sense doors. This is an important insight, as it shows us clearly and directly in some basic way that we are not our mind or our body. It is also a pleasant, clear, and unitive feeling state. It really is still more state-like than stage-like. And people can try to hold on to it just as with the first shamatha jhana and thus get stuck. That first taste of a little space around thoughts can be a huge relief for those who have never noticed they could observe their thoughts as thoughts. And the emotional benefits can be profound for some people. It is this early insight that provides the benefits of some of the shallow end of the pool techniques, such as mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR. Mind and body, the start of the first Vipassana jhana is very close to the first Shamatha jhana. And if you don't remember, Shamatha jhana is the jhanas for concentration practices. Just as aspects of the stages of the arising and passing away, dissolution, and equanimity are close to their respective shamatha jhanas. Okay, and so that those are all of those are stages of insight. The fourth arising and passing away is the fourth stage, but it is the first stage of the second jhana. And then dissolution is the fifth stage, and it is the first stage of the third insight jhana. And then equanimity, I believe, is the 10th state, and that is the first stage of the fourth insight jhana. Okay, so the first state of those jhanas are close to their respective shamatha jhanas. And then by investigating, you bring in a difference. Investigating for the three characteristics, or penetrating the illusion of the three illusions. Reality can seem just a bit more brilliant the first time we chance into mind and body. We may feel more alive and connected to the world. For some, it may hit with unusual force, filling them with a great sense of unity or universal consciousness. For others, it may not seem particularly profound or noticeable, except that now they suddenly feel they are practicing better than before, assuming they were practicing in the first place, as the first three stages in particular commonly arise during daily life, as plenty of activities in daily life cultivate factors such as precise attention and concentration that are sufficient to generate these insights. With the sensate experience of both mental and physical phenomena being clearly observable and distinguished, the relationships and interactions between the two start to become obvious. And what is meant by the dualistic split is more easily comprehended here. Just before or just after the first stage, there may arise odd jaw pains on one side, throat tensions, and similar unpleasant physical occurrences. Multiple other unusual experiences can arise early at the start of the first Vipassana jhana, such as feelings related to what is called the homunculus, in which our lips and mouth, as well as hands, feel very large, and our bodily shape feels like it corresponds closely to the size distribution of the way parts of the brain map onto parts of the body. The sense of other similar body distortions can occur, such as feeling very small or long or compacted, or feeling like we are sinking slowly into the floor or rising into the air. Also, it is not uncommon for people on retreats who are doing walking meditation around first Vipassana jhana territory to notice things like faces in the wallpaper or marks on the floor, much in the same way that we might see faces in clouds. And in fact, I have often speculated that seeing shapes in clouds correlates with extremely light first Vipassana jhana territory, which is why it is nice to do that. Regardless, it soon becomes easy to see that each sensation is followed by the crude mental impression of it, and that intentions precede actions and thoughts. Meaning we see what causes what. Intentions precede actions and thoughts. We see what causes what. Thus, we come to stage number 2, which is called cause and effect. In the stage of cause and effect, the relationships between mental and physical phenomena become very clear and something ratchet-like. There is a cause, such as intention, and then an effect, such as movement. There is a cause, such as a sensation, and then there is an effect, namely a mental impression. The joy and wonder of mind and body have left, and now the interactions between mind and body start to seem somewhat mechanical. Motions such as walking or breathing may begin to get jerky, just as there is the intention that and the motion, the sensation and the mental impression of it, the cause and the effect all occurring in a way that can seem sort of tight and robot-like. You note the breath moves just a bit. You stop noting, the breath stops. You note quickly, the breath jerks quickly. You note slowly, the breath follows. You note smoothly, the breath is smooth. The same thing can happen with our feet during walking meditation if we are noting our steps. Some will stop noting quickly or stop noting completely, thinking that they are messing up the breath. The advice here is as before. Note quickly and don't worry about what the breath does. It may do crazy things. Keep practicing regardless, as this is just one phase, and in later phases, attention won't modify the breath in this way. So just keep going. Avoid having some idealized notion of how meditative breathing must be, as it will just confuse, frustrate, and slow you down at this stage. Do not pathologize this stage and the fact that attention, intention, and movement interact in unusual ways, as this is a sign of progress, not problems. Remember how I recommended trying to experience 1 to 10 sensations per second, noting which were mental and which were physical? At this stage, the technical meditator is finally able to do this with a fair degree of skill, confidence, and consistency. Even meditators who are not particularly technical will generally notice that they are able to observe many more sensations than they could before. Those with stronger concentration tendencies or a bent toward more visionary aspects of life and practice may notice thoughts and perhaps even visions of insight into cause and effect on a macroscopic scale, where past action or circumstances led to various consequences. Some event led to some rebirth. Some previous life led to something today, and in general may get a sense that they are able to intuit aspects of the workings of karma in a way they did not before. As the meditator becomes clearer about the beginnings and endings of mental and physical sensations, of the imitation caused by this jerkiness, the irritation caused by this jerkiness, and notices the fact that all of this seems to be happening on its own, they come to directly perceive for themselves the three characteristics. So this section is called the three characteristics. The three characteristics of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and no self become predominant, which is good, as these are the basis for insight. except this stage is one of the hard ones and can really throw people. It becomes more obvious that all the constituents of our experience are quickly arising and passing, somewhat jarring and not particularly in our control or to be identified with as me. Further, as these sensations are all observed, including the crude mental impression that follows them, that we call consciousness, it becomes clear the whole of the mind and body process is not a separate self. It is merely a part of an interdependent world. These characteristics become clearer and clearer, as well as faster and faster, as the meditator diligently pays careful attention to exactly what is happening at each moment. For those doing noting practice at this stage, your speed and precision may get so fast that you cannot note every sensation you experience. Move to more general noting, monosyllabic noting, such as bip for each sensation experienced, regardless of what it was. Or drop the noting entirely and stay with noticing bare sensation come and go. If one is noting, then dropping noting during this stage will allow some to get much faster, but others will get sloppy, so watch for this, particularly around unpleasant sensations, and start noting again if you start to stagnate or regress. At this stage, practice really begins to take off, even though this stage tends to be physically unpleasant, with what is called hard pain being a classic hallmark of this stage. This stage can also cause many dark emotions and a sense of wanting to renounce the world and do only more practice. Others on retreat or practicing in daily life will hit the pain of this stage and completely bail out because they find the hard pain frightening or too difficult to handle. Occasionally, the early part of the stage can cause people to feel vulnerable, raw, and irritable to the degree and in ways that a migraine headache or a bad case of PMS can. I have occasionally been laid out on a couch for hours by this aspect of this stage, holding my head, massaging my neck, and just wishing that these early stages didn't sometimes involve so much pain, tension, and even anguish. There may be odd bodily contortions, movements, obsession with posture, and painful tensions or other bizarre sensations, particularly in the back, neck, jaw, and shoulders, which typically go by the name of kriyas, Kriyas, in the Indian traditions. These tensions may persist when not meditating and be quite irritating and even debilitating. The rhomboid and trapezius muscles are the standard offenders. It is common to try to sit with good posture and then find our body twisting into some odd and painful position. Bizarre and even violent movements can occur. You straighten out, and soon enough the contortion happens again, and often referred to as swaying in the Mahasi Sayadaw tradition, though it may be more rigid than that implies. This is a very three characteristics stage sort of pattern. People sometimes describe these feelings as some powerful energy that is blocked and wants to get out and move through. Feelings of heat and sensations like those of a fever may sometimes accompany this stage. The neck and back may become very stiff, either on one side or both, specifically manifesting as spasmodic torticollis, aka wry neck, and or TMG pain. One day, the medical, developmental, psychological, and scientific disciplines will learn to recognize this insight stage with those being possible criteria. The right and left sides of the body may at times feel quite different from each other, like they are pulling in different directions, are somehow different sizes or shapes, or even have totally different feeling tones. The easiest way to get these unpleasant physical manifestations to stop is to keep investigating the three characteristics with high resolution precision of either the unpleasant sensations or of whatever primary object you have chosen. These are the common early retreat experiences, particularly in the first few days. A successful journey through this stage typically requires meditators to up their games in terms of the time resolution of their minds. Our minds can perceive these tensions and unpleasant sensations with surprising degrees of speed and subtlety. If we can find the balance of positive meditation factors that facilitates this, facilitates this. A review of the 7 factors of awakening may be helpful here. Fighting the kriyas, or trying other methods of alleviation, massages, painkillers, etc., seem to help only a little, not at all, only temporarily, or sometimes makes the problem even worse. Though sometimes hatha yoga, tai chi, and related practices done with a high degree of precise awareness can help. It is a common time for people on retreat to spend a lot of time suddenly stretching and reworking their sitting apparatus and posture to try to mitigate these effects, usually manifesting a few days into the retreat. There is a common time for people in daily life to go to health practitioners of various kinds, from orthopedists and dentists to chiropractors and body workers. For example, I had a wisdom tooth removed during one pass through this stage because I thought it was throwing my jaw out of alignment. Perhaps it was, but the perception of the tooth's position being pathological was clearly exacerbated by this stage of practice. I dreamed that one day chiropractors, physiatrists, physicians, and mid-level practitioners, and physical, occupational, and massage therapists will all be taught these stages in school so that they can recognize them and help people cultivate some of the internal techniques that can help. Even if these unpleasant physical manifestations do slack off for a bit, they are likely to recur until insight is sufficient to progress beyond this part of the stage of the 3 characteristics. Thus, should we find these meditation